All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's tournament strategy show, where we'll take a look at last night, see what went well, talk through what might not have gone as well. Then we'll talk through today's slate and try and keep it going. I hope everyone's doing all right. Last night was a good one for me. Zolo, it was good. It was good. It wasn't great because of some of the bulls I forced a little late, but it was still a really positive night. Thomas, what's up, man? I know you had a good one. Mo, what's going on? Let's talk through last night's slate. The website that updates me on like the top lineups has been slacking a little bit. So we'll just talk through the guys who were in the highest lineup, the best line I saw, which had a total of, I don't even remember, but we'll talk through. Trey Mann was in the nuts lineup. He did well. We were well over the field on him. From what I'm recalling, you guys can let me know if I'm wrong there, but we had plenty of man last night. Basel from the Spurs, he did well last night. We talked about him plenty. We were also over the field on him. DeMar DeRozan, so I guess I was wrong. He made the nuts lineup too, so glad that he was able to make it there. Victor Wembanyama was a core play for us last night, so yeah, Zolo, that went pretty well. Glad Victor came through for us. We were significantly over the field on him. Vucevic is another guy we forced exposure to. We were probably 5 to 6% over the field on him, so a little bit of leverage there, but nothing too crazy. Tyus Jones, we had plenty of. Craig, we had plenty of. And Gafford, we put a 3% min on the pre-lock show, which went pretty well, but would have loved to have more. Obviously, once he moved into the starting lineup, he was a much more obvious and clear play. But overall, it was a good one, guys. Appreciate the support last night and glad things went well, but let's keep it going for today. This slate's a little interesting. There's injury news that we already have. There's not a ton of super important injury news that we're waiting on. I mean, there's the usual guys, but there's not as many as we usually have. So let's start off with the Celtics going up against the Nets. For the Celtics today, Porzingis is questionable. Porzingis is more than likely not going to play. He rarely ever plays on the front end of a back-to-back for them, which means Horford will play tonight, and then Porzingis will play tomorrow, and Horford won't play then. When Porzingis is out, that's a nice boost to Tatum and White. They both see an increase in usage. I don't care about the Nets from a defensive perspective. This is a good spot for them, for Tatum and White. You can consider Brown and Holiday, but I'm not overly excited about them so far when it comes to like the sim model and just their overall matchups, but they're viable plays. But the guys I'm going to force exposure to and make sure I'm at least around field weight exposure are Jason Tatum and Derek White. And moving on from there, I'm not trying to get cute with any of the other pieces here. There's one team we can get cute with when it comes to value, the Heat. And there might be some other spots, but not for the Celtics. All right. And then when it comes to the Nets tonight, the game total isn't bad. 228's fine, especially on this slate. So you're not crazy for taking a one-off shot on Bridges or Thomas. Claxton's fine. Don't really love Schroeder, but you can consider him. Ultimately, I'm not forcing exposure to these guys on this slate. I hate the Nets, especially when they're healthy like they are right now. Cam Johnson's out, so that's worth mentioning, but they're relatively healthy at this point. Cam Johnson's been out for a few games now. Jalen Wilson's viable for like a value play, but I think we have other better value options on this slate. Ultimately, no one's standing out for me. I don't like to pick on the Celtics too much in general, but I'm okay with one-off shots here. But in my early runs, I'm not getting any exposure to the Nets. This is starting off slow, man. I'm not trying to be so negative, but I am not liking these first few games as much. Yeah, Thomas. Gafford came through clutch. Travis said, glad my math started Gafford and that I went well over on him. Yeah. When he moved into the starting lineup, I know a lot of people struggled to force exposure to him. I didn't force exposure. I had 3%. I didn't expect people to be able to switch to him too much. So 3% was plenty for me to still have a really good night. But if you were able to get more than that, Thomas, I know you were really on Gafford, and you were probably significantly over the field. I know you had a really good night. We talked about it already. So if you did that, you were well above the field, but it sounds like it was a good one. Mr. Five, what's up, man? It's not a 20 max night for me. I'm gonna 150, but there's no rhyme or reason for me on if I'm 20 maxing or 150 maxing. Just depends on what I feel like doing that day. But back to this game, the Thunder going up against the Magic. I don't like picking on the Magic, so that's a big thing here. No real injury news for the Thunder per usual. Game total's pretty low at 223. Spread is close, which is nice, but in general, I don't like to pick on the Magic. Like I said, they're a pretty solid team from a defensive standpoint, played a pretty slow pace, so it doesn't make this game very exciting. I do like the low ownership on guys like SGA and Chet and Jalen Williams, but not enough where I want to prioritize these guys more than some of the other players I am going to force exposure to on this slate. So, okay for one-off shots, but they're not standing out enough for me right now. The Magic are a bit more viable. They're playing in a slightly faster pace environment going up against the Thunder. Magic have also just been solid here recently. Paolo is obviously fine at 8,200. Decent spot, decent matchup, but I'm not going to force exposure to him, at least not as of right now. Franz Wagner has been really good as of late, playing consistent minutes, good form, good matchup, only 7,100. He is the chalkiest player, one of them, on the Magic, but I do want to at least match field weight exposure on Franz tonight. I really like this spot for him and the price tag in particular. Love 50-point upside, 40, 50-point upside on a 7K player is really good. In general today, that low 7K range to 7,400 range is a pretty nice sweet spot on this slate. Wendell Carter Jr. is fine. Not going to force exposure to him. Suggs is interesting, but I still like other plays a bit more. Cole Anthony is looking like he's going to be relatively chalky. So is Jonathan Isaac. These are value options. They're not priorities. These guys will definitely not be core plays for me unless I'm extremely missing something. But I really do think they're just lineup fillers. Jonathan Isaac, he's coming off a strong performance. I never like playing guys after their ceiling performance. He hasn't seen 25 DK points since November, but he played 25 minutes last game against Chicago for the first time in forever, and he had 30 fantasy points, which is good. But that's not his new normal. I think we should continue to expect anywhere from 16 to 20 fantasy points. He's pretty chalky. Like I said, I'm going to have exposure to Jonathan Isaac. Not going to be a core play. I don't want more than 30, 35% exposure, maybe 40. Cole Anthony, he did play 30 minutes last time out. We have seen more minutes from him, but his minutes are everywhere. Let me see. He's not going to start tonight because Fultz and Suggs are all, and this team's completely healthy. Just not guys I'm overly excited about. We've seen games where Cole Anthony plays 30 minutes like last time. We also see games where he sees 10 minutes. And if you just look at his minutes log, it's all across the board, and it's been that way all season. He's cheap at 3,500. He's viable, but he's also priced relatively appropriately, in my opinion. We have seen him be a lot more expensive because he can see that upper 30-minute range. I'm not going to fade him. I'll have some decent leverage, but again, I don't really want more than 30, 35% exposure to Cole Anthony tonight. I think it's one of those spots where we look at his game log, we see the production he can have, but when this team is healthy, if no one gets in the foul trouble, I don't see Cole Anthony being as involved. Could be wrong. He could keep seeing 30-plus minutes now, but, like I said, 30%, which will still give me decent leverage if his ownership is still relatively high, but he's not someone I want 60 to 80% of tonight. Yeah, the $3,500 price tag does feel weird, and it is what keeps him viable, but it also doesn't seem as crazy to me as it could seem. Yeah, he is really cheap. Anthony finally was back in the rotation, played 30 minutes after not seeing over 19 in a hot minute. Should that continue or go back to where it's been? That's the thing, Anthony. No one really knows. No one has a clue. But like I said, I'm okay with having a little bit of leverage, but not enough to go heavy on it. Yeah, with Isaac, I don't. I think for sure priority would be a little, which is also weird to me that Cole Anthony is seeing less ownership than Jonathan Isaac. It might be a situation I need to dig into a little bit more and just see if I'm missing something here, but I don't think so. So as of right now, the only real priority I have for this team is for Franz Wagner to be in my lines. Everyone else, I don't really give a damn about here. Let's see. Power said they sat Folt, Suggs, and Carter and went into OT. That would explain it. That would explain it. Which is why you see it pretty often. People start to go pretty heavy on these one-off situations. So usually not my favorite spot to go back to. All right. Let's see. Yeah, I typically just don't like games that the Magic are involved in. It's also the lowest total game on the slate. Quite a few reasons to not go too crazy here, but one-offs, one or two players here and there, totally fine. All right, next up we have the game of the night that everyone will and should be building their teams around today. For the Miami Heat, Jimmy Butler's out. Terry Rozier is out. Those are two starters that's opening up a lot of minutes for the Miami Heat now. Also, Duncan Robinson is questionable. Josh Richardson's out too, but I don't care as much about Richardson being out. But Duncan Robinson's questionable as well. He's someone who is projecting very well right now, will be extremely chalky. But if he gets ruled out, this situation gets crazy because they're lacking guards. The Heat will be. We'll probably see Drew Smith see a bit more run. He would really be the only guy I'd be comfortable forcing exposure to. But let's wait and see. Assuming Duncan Robinson plays, he's in a great spot. Tyler Hero at 6,900. We know both him and Bam will be the main guys leading things for the Heat tonight. And the matchup against the Bucks is a soft one, so it's not something we have to really worry about too much. So I'm going to have a lot of Bam. I'm going to have a lot of Tyler Hero. I don't know if Hero. I want to have at least 5 to 10%. I want to be at least 5 to 10% over the field on Hero, but it's a little bit of a dangerous game. He does have the toughest matchup. Oddly enough, just guards like Hero haven't been scoring as well here lately against the Bucks. I know we've been picking on them for a while, but yeah, combo guards are ranked 28th in the league, and the Bucks are trying to think of the right way to word this. The Bucks are ranked 28th in the league against combo guards and allowing fantasy points. So they've been pretty good against guards like Hero as of late. So just because of the situation, I do like Hero, but I am not completely sold on him being a core play quite yet, but he probably will end up being one. Caleb Martin, Jaime sees a boost. We're expecting Jaime to start. He's chalky for good reason. Kevin Love becomes a really, really good play if Duncan Robinson gets ruled out. If Robinson, Butler, Richardson, and Rozier all get ruled out, Kevin Love sees a 4.4% increase in usage. With just Butler, Richardson, and Terry, he sees less. Probably, I think when I looked at it, it was around 1 to 2% of an increase in usage. So still good at 3,600, but he's a much stronger play if Duncan Robinson gets ruled out. So yeah, we're playing a lot of the Heat, and they're really showing up in my early runs too. So yeah, I like them a lot. Let's see, what are people thinking? Hero homecoming game? I don't know the lore there. I do know Hero typically does do well against the Bucks. They've historically struggled against guys who can shoot threes, so it doesn't shock me, but it is interesting. Yeah, Zello, I think Love is definitely viable, but I like him a lot more if Robinson is out. Yeah, Anthony, we have to. We have to play Drew if Robinson gets ruled out. I talked about Love, but Drew Smith sees a 6.3% increase in usage, and he is way more involved when Robinson, Butler, Richardson, and Terry are out. So we probably won't have a choice, and I don't think we'll be alone there either, unfortunately. For the Bucks, Lillard was a bit of a pain point last night. We did have a little bit of exposure to Giannis, which went pretty well. Ultimately, as of right now, I'm not taking a shot on Giannis or Lillard. By the time I get to the pre-lock show, though, I will probably at least have a 5% min on Giannis and considering going back to Lillard since he hurt me yesterday. But I don't love the matchup or anything like that. Low total game, not trying to force too much exposure there. All right. Interesting, Mr. 5. I need to look at that. I didn't see that earlier. For the Timberwolves, they are playing on the back end of a back-to-back. They played last night. No real injury news worth talking about here. Portland is a team I'm also kind of like the Nets, just never afraid of from a defensive perspective. Anthony Edwards has a great matchup tonight. Ownership's not bad for just a 5-game or 6-game slate. I won't say Anthony Edwards is going to be a leverage play for me tonight, but I do want to at least be at field weight and ideally be around 5 to 10% over the field. Rudy Gobert also has a pretty solid matchup going up against Portland. He's priced well, also looking pretty chalky. Mike Conley at 5K just makes things work. Mike Conley, we know who he is. This is not a surprise. He's a low usage guy. He plays solid minutes, and he's typically pretty cheap. Will he burn you most of the time because he just does a lot of cardio? Yes. But he does have 40-point upside if he decides to do anything while he's out there. So more than likely, I think our projection's pretty solid here. You should expect anywhere from 23 to 27, maybe 30 points, DK points. But every now and again, he'll surprise us with like a solid 40-point performance. So that's the upside he brings to the table. Again, Mike Conley is not someone I want as a core play. I don't want Mike Conley in the vast majority of my lines, but I do like being slightly over the field on Conley just so I can have a little bit of an edge there if he is a little bit more aggressive tonight in a relatively soft matchup. So he's interesting, but again, not a core play worthy guy in my opinion. Naz Reid is seeing ownership. Not really sure why that's happening. I'll need to look closer at that, but I don't like it as of right now. Monty Morris, I'll need to look a little bit closer at too, but don't love it off the top of my head. Really, main focal points and priorities are Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert here, but really Anthony Edwards. I like him a lot on this slate. The hard part of Anthony Edwards is going to be how much can I get with him in comparison to some of the other studs I like. Anthony, love Ayton tonight. That makes me nervous. It should. It should make you nervous, man. DeAndre Ayton is not for the faint of heart. He has solid upside, and he's been in decent form as of late. He's had some 50-point performances, some 40-point performances, which isn't bad for his price range. So I definitely don't think you're crazy. And he's had some relatively tough matchups too, where he's had some strong performances. Ayton's one of those weird guys that frustrate me, where he tends to, at least here lately, he's been playing better in bad matchups, but is really underperforming in soft matchups. Doesn't always make a ton of sense. This is a pretty tough matchup for him going up against the Timberwolves tonight. They're ranked 20th in most fantasy points allowed to post bigs like DeAndre Ayton. So personally, I'm not getting there, but like you said, like he's a solid pivot just because he's been playing well in these tough matchups. So for some players, and we talked about it with Grant yesterday too, sometimes things don't have to make sense for them to happen. They just do. And Grant Williams starting last night, didn't really see that coming, but sometimes people do things just because it makes sense to them. But Grant Williams did look, not Grant. Or maybe I was thinking about Grant. Or Gafford. I don't know. I'm getting them all confused. Yesterday is a blur. Wembanyama went off though. Triple-double with blocks. That's wild. Anyway. Yeah, exactly, Anthony. I agree with them. Ultimately, though, for me, when it comes to the Portland Trailblazers tonight, I'm not forcing exposure to anyone here. If Scoot Henderson gets ruled out, he's currently listed as questionable. Simons is probable, Reed is probable, Malcolm Brogdon's out. If Henderson ends up not playing, then I might be a little bit more interested in taking a shot on Simons, but I don't like picking on the Timberwolves too much. Is there a weak spot here we can look at? The weak spots are Matisse Thybulle and Jabari Walker. They've struggled against the Timberwolves as of late have struggled against shooting wings and 3-and-D wings. Ultimately, I'm still not excited about the Trailblazers tonight. I just can't do it. Yeah, it's just gross, man. It's gross. It's also the lowest game total on the slate, so I'm just not trying to force exposure there. But per usual, these low total games, Thunder Magic, Timberwolves Portland, not trying to get a lot of guys from these games, but if you want to take a shot on one or two guys here, they should be pretty low owned tonight. So it's not a bad strategy to take a shot, especially if you're MMEing. You really need to take a few shots on low owned players, else you're just doing it totally wrong. All right, now we have guys we like. Who are we playing tonight? The guys from the last two games. Starting off, we have the Kings going up against the Suns. Chris Duarte is questionable. Don't really care about that. But I do like that this is the highest total game on the slate by a long shot, and I am going to force exposure to it in quite a few different ways. Sabonis, I'll be over the field on. Fox, I'll easily be over the field on. Monk, probably will at least try to match field weight exposure. If I'm over the field because of the domination station, that's fine. And then Keegan Murray, I'll be over the field on. That easy. Anyone else who shows up, that's fine. But those are the four pieces I'm going to prioritize. If you're interested in seeing like how it's executed and who we're actually going to put men's on and how much over the field we're going to be, feel free to tune in 5:30 p.m. today. That's for the pre-lock show. Brandon, aka B-Dubs, will be here for that. Link is in the description. Feel free to use promo code BOB if you want a 10% discount on that. If not, well, I'll see you tomorrow here talking about how things went. But yeah, I like the Kings a lot. Kings are in a really good spot, and I'm going to play as much of them as I can. The Suns are on the other side of this, also relatively healthy. There's a chance Thad Young could play tonight, but not overly concerned about that. The interesting thing for me is Devin Booker's price is finally lower than Kevin Durant's, but Devin Booker's been pretty solid over the last few games. So one thing I'll mention is that there was a time when I was really good at playing Devin Booker in the right spot. That time has not been over the last month and a half. I have played Devin Booker and he's been awful. And then when I don't play him, he does great. Tonight, I'm playing Devin Booker. He's a leverage play for me tonight. I'll be over the field on him. Pretty easy decision for me. Simauto likes him. Low owned, highest total game. I always attack that. I'll have exposure to Kevin Durant as well, but I just want to be close to field weight exposure on him. He's not someone I need to be double the field on or anything like that. And then Bradley Beal, I want to at least be around field weight exposure on, but ideally I'll be slightly over the field. Outside of that, when it comes to Nurkic and Allen, I'm not overexcited about it. Nurkic is not someone I'm trying to force exposure to. I like playing him in super soft matchups where it's going to be pretty easy for him to score and be a little bit more aggressive than he normally is. But in spots like this, just a pretty neutral spot. Let me double check that. Phoenix. Yeah, pretty neutral spot against Sabonis. I don't feel the need to force exposure to him now, but if I get a little bit of exposure, that's fine. Allen's your streaky shooter. I don't feel like he's extremely necessary tonight, but again, high total game. He's fine. I strongly prefer Keegan Murray over Grayson Allen, though, in every single situation. Let's see. Anyone else worth mentioning? Nope. I think we're good to go. Love that game. Just love it. Not too much more to say than that. And then the next game, we have the Lakers going up against the Pistons. Pistons are missing Grimes. He's out. We don't really know if Evan Fournier is going to play. Malachi Flynn, still TBD. So there's a few guys who might end up playing tonight that could make the rotation a little bit more messy. But ultimately, I trust the guys I'm forcing exposure to. Those guys are Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Jaden Ivey. Starting off with Cade, in my opinion, he's still a bit too cheap. I know he hasn't had an overly explosive game yet. Like we're used to seeing those 50, 60-point performances, but we saw a 47-point performance from him against the Clippers just 3 days ago. And he played 34 minutes and he actually got cheaper. So I'm not worried about his minutes. I'm not worried about the matchup against the Lakers here. I think it's a good one that he can abuse. And so Cade, it's going to depend on how easy it is to make lines because we only have 6 games and there's some expensive guys I'm forcing exposure to. But if I can make Cade a leverage play, which would mean I have at least 30% of him or more, I would love that on this slate because I really do like him in this spot. But I do want to at least make sure I'm around 20% matching field weight exposure on him if that ownership stays because I do like him a lot here. Jalen Duren, he's been good over the last few games. He's still pretty cheap. Pretty solid matchup going up against AD as well. Lakers are ranked 11th in most fantasy points allowed to post bigs. So good spot for Duren. Once again, want to at least match field weight. Ideally, I'll be slightly over the field on him. And then last but not least, Jaden Ivey. He's the one I'm a little bit more nervous about, but we know the upside is there. He pretty consistently has at least 1 or 2 40, 50-point performances a week. And so in this pretty solid matchup against the Lakers, I want to make sure I'm at least around field weight on Ivy. Outside of that, you can consider a shot on Asar. It's not the craziest thing. Fontecchio played a lot in that last game, so he's fine, but I think there's better plays. Troy Brown at 3K, you could do worse. But if we start getting news that some of the other players who were traded to this team are playing, Troy Brown becomes more and more risky if they become available. So, interesting spot. I appreciate Mr. 5. If you all could, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. I know we're trying to grow those numbers too, so appreciate the support. Bol a shot, Mr. 5, if you want to take it. I'm not going to tell you not to, but I don't think I plan on going there unless I'm missing something. Is Drew done for the year? Spread him? I don't have Drew. Oh, yeah, he is. He is out for the season. Yeah, you're right. I'm totally off for that. Yeah. Holy crap. They're missing a ton of guards. If Robinson gets ruled out, I have no idea what they're going to do. I'll be interested to see. Well, their starting lineup wouldn't change at all. So we wouldn't really have any insight around what they would do here. Maybe I need to go back to that game and see. Alondes Williams. He's the next man up at 3K. Looks like we have him, like he'll probably play around 10 minutes tonight. Oh, man, that game gets so gross. Duncan Robinson, please just play. I don't want to have to worry about Alon Williams. But if he's out, we might have to play him. It's just that simple. Damn, that could get gross. But also, if he's out, it's very possible that just really solidifies Hero and really solidifies Jaime as well, with them using him in the 2 at times. And Caleb Martin, he's a nice boost there too. But we like those guys. We're playing those guys. It's going to be a lot of them. And then we talked about the Pistons already, so we're good to go there. For the Lakers, yeah. Yeah. But appreciate that, spread them. All right, for the Lakers tonight, of course, LeBron and Anthony Davis are both listed as questionable. We'll see who ends up playing. Spencer Dinwiddie is available, so he'll probably play tonight off the bench. Their coach has mentioned that at times he might play a rotation with 3 guards of Reeves, Russell, and Dinwiddie. To me, Dinwiddie joining this team is a negative to all of the role players outside of LeBron and AD. I am not interested in D'Angelo Russell. I know he is looking pretty chalky, and even the sim model likes him, and so that's what made me put a like on him. But I'm very comfortable fading Russell today because I just don't know what that situation looks like. yet and what those rotations will look like, or if it'll mess up his usage rates at all. If I get a little bit of exposure to him because he's projecting well and the domination station gives me that exposure, I'm okay getting the field weight exposure, but I don't want a ton of leverage on Russell tonight. He feels a little risky. LeBron has a really soft matchup against the Pistons. Anthony Davis has just been really good this season. I never mind picking on the Pistons front court, although they have improved over the last few games. Anthony Davis is still a very viable pay-up option. I do prefer Sabonis, and I do prefer Giannis, but AD is a solid top 5 option for me on this slate. I don't know if I'm going to be able to match field weight exposure, but I'm leaving a like on him because I would like to. Yeah, it wouldn't shock me. Yeah, Anthony, like, Hero could see more run in that situation. Oh, man, that could get wild. Something tells me Dinwiddie will start. Him is such a horrible coach. You know, the starting lineup will be interesting. I am really not thinking about any of the role players outside of AD and LeBron, and I'm pretty solid on it. Whoever the DS gives me, I'm just going to make sure I don't get too much of whoever else it likes. Let's see. Appreciate you, Dave. It really does help. Mr. Five said this is the game to target. It's an interesting one. I like the Pistons. I like Anthony Davis and LeBron James, but I like the Suns-Kings game a bit more. But both are games I'm planning on building around. And then you have to have the Miami Heat. And then I like the Celtics a good bit tonight, too. So that's like my overall strategy here. But we'll see. I'm sure a lot will change by the time we get to the pre-lock show. So make sure everyone's ready for that. And then if not, I look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow and getting ready for that slate. And then we're almost at the break, which means we're also almost at the end of the season, which is a little sad. Darius said Cade Duran will eat tonight. I hope so, man. I like them both. AD, Sabonis, Hero, and all the cheapies across the game. I am 100% sure I'll have a few lineups like that. I don't think that's a bad strat. My only concern would be ownership, but I don't even think it's going to be that bad on AD or Sabonis. Hero is going to be super chalky, but it's a 6-game slate, so I like it. Sweet. All right, y'all. Peace out. Good luck tonight.